Hello and welcome back to BikeSocial and to our Better Riding series. I'm Michael Mann, and this series is brought to you by Bennett and Honda Motorcycles UK. It brings you advice and tips that will make you a better motorcycle rider, and that's, of course, whether you're new to riding. So you could be new at 17, you could be new at 57, or whether you've been riding your entire life. We all want to be better, and we all can be better. Well, we've teamed up with professional motorbike coach Mark McVeigh, an experienced rider coach and ex-MotoGP engineer, a riding academy owner for over 20 years, and the inventor of the Moto DNA rider training tech. Mark has taught more than 10,000 riders to be smarter, to be safer, and to be more confident. And here he is, all the way from Australia, by the power of the internet. G'day, Mark. How are you, mate?
Yep, good, Michael. How are you doing?
Terrific, thank you. I'm very, very well. Very excited to get back stuck into this. This is the series 3, isn't it, already?
Yep, you're back. You've had your holidays now, so you need to do some work.
So what are we going to be talking about today, Mr. McVeigh?
Yep, so today we're talking about biomechanics.
Biomechanics, right? Okay, it sounds like a school subject. Tell me more about it. What does that mean?
Well, it's kind of body position and movement on your bike, so it's a bit of a fancy word, but essentially it's, human machine interaction, how the rider's body moves on the bike and the forces and how they affect the motorbike's dynamics, if you like.
What use is body position on the road?
Yeah, well, I guess, when people think about body position, they picture, Mark Marquez hanging off his bike, or in this case, we've got a Mr. Mann displaying, his cornering. But the truth is, body position's not just for the track. It's important, and there's safety elements available for the road too.
Go on then. So why is it so important to the road then? I can't be doing that on the around the roundabouts.
Exactly. Well, the key thing is, the rider is about 1/3 of the total combined mass of the bike and the rider. For easy math, say your bike's 200 kilo and you're 100. So unlike a car, the rider's posture and the movement obviously, plays a significant role in the motorcycle, how it steers and balances it and grips on the road. And you can see, that our lovely Honda making its way around the corner. And if we bring these two images up side by side, it's a really useful way to, that's obviously yourself, and you look at the center line of the bike, and there's so much of your body weight on the inside of the bike. But, on the road, obviously we don't ride like this with our knee down on the road. But, on the road, a body position like this is quite good. You can see center line of the bike in green, and the rider's head's kind of in the middle, which is good. And we'll discuss that a bit more detail later. And you can see, the elbow on the inside of the corner, it's dropped. The knee's just, sticking out a little bit. But that just subtle body position movements, if you like, are enough to, make a good improvement, to the motorbike dynamics on the road, if you like.
Mark, you've got a riding school of your own, haven't you? You've taught 10,000 riders, I believe. What do you see there?
Yeah, I mean, it's that 10,000 is probably double now, but we're busy. I mean, we teach hundreds of drills, but the body position drill is actually had the most profound impact on riders.
Oh, that's really interesting. Why? Do you know?
Well, most riders are skeptical. When I explain to them, I'd like you to hang off their bike. And, when we practice the drill, the riders, they're kind of almost begrudgingly, trying to hang off the bike a little bit. We're only talking about moving your bum over a little bit or dropping your elbow, but, they kind of don't want to do it. It's kind of feels uncomfortable or whatever the reason is, but we kind of push them through that. And then the difference from just a small bit of body position, it blows the riders away, just those small movements and the performance in the bike. It surprises most people.
I mean, it must just be like a Swiss Army knife, isn't it? It's just like having another tool in your belt to help you be a better rider.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, the road's full of variables. There's cars merging. Cars aren't looking for us. Diesel, gravel, blind crests. and if you can use your body in a way that kind of helps the bike do less work, and especially in the corners, that's got to be a good thing. And, we mentioned there about 1/3 of the combined mass. So it really does affect how the bike moves around. And if you're stiff, upright, you're kind of forcing the bike to do more and grip less. But if you move your body with purpose, suddenly the bike becomes lighter and more stable and easier to control. And, you can keep the bike with a little bit of body position. You can keep the bike more upright in corners, with your body shifted slightly to the inside. And the more upright the bike, the more grip the bike has, and the more ground clearance, etc. Another benefit is the increase in roll rate. So if we look at these, got obviously the red, that's kind of the gravitational force, and it's pulling down through the center of mass of the bike, and then the cornering forces to the side. But if we are kind of off the side of the bike, to the center of mass, it has a significant benefit from the roll rate, which is kind of like an engineering term, but essentially the bike will turn quicker. And that's another benefit, so you can change line, you might have to brake mid-corner or deal with hazards, more confidently. And of course, you don't have to hang off like a racer. It's really just dropping your elbow, shifting your hips a few centimeters, and, and then using your kind of knees to grip the tank. And it's, the benefits are there for the taking.
It's dynamic, isn't it? It can be dynamic riding a bike, moving around and really enjoying it. And certainly on the track, that's why you work so hard and you come away and the following day your muscles are all aching. Mark, we talk a lot about vision. Can biomechanics help?
Yeah, well, that's a good one. So, see and be seen, that's a real riding fundamental. So, keeping your head up and level, even when you're leaning, and that's super important. So, we've got a bit of a rail here, and, the first point here is a bit of a crest of a hill. So, keeping your head up is really important to see over that hill, if you like. And, I'm on my adventure bike a lot, and I often stand up to try and, help that vision, especially if it gets a bit, steep, the crest of the hill. And then we've got a right-hand corner here. So we're, positioning in line 1 into line position 2. And then there's a truck coming. So, that gives us the good vision to be able to see around the corner and improve our visibility and help drivers see us.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it? And all these tips and tricks and the bits of advice, it's tricky enough to kind of take them all in on one go. But if you can just if you can go out and practice on one road, just the standing it back and just giving yourself the advantage, using your body and making sure that you are, as you said, so you can see better and you can be seen better. Mark, let's move on to steering. How can our body help us steer the bike?
Yeah, well, we see this a lot, with students that they're kind of unknowingly putting, excess pressure on the bars. And that can make the bike feel vague and reduce, steering precision. So it's really important to kind of engage your core. And we've got this rail that shows, the steering axis and how important it is to push at 90 degrees to that steering axis for steering efficiency. So if you're, pushing down, that's not really very efficient. You need to kind of push at the 90 degrees. But a drill that we do at the school is we get the riders are sitting on their bike, and they might, the coach might hold the bike, statically, and we get the riders, to assume the position and then take their hands off the handlebars. And of course, when they take the hands off the handlebars, they're to stop their body falling down, they've got to engage their core. And that's a really good drill because it kind of gives them that muscle memory, if you like, to go, all right, that's what I should be feeling when I'm riding. Okay, so take the weight off your hands, bend your elbows and let your core do the work. And that really, it does heaps of different things. It kind of reduces fatigue and gives you a much better sense of what that front tire's doing as well.
That's really interesting. It's a really good thing to practice that, even when you get a ride, isn't it? What about feet?
Yeah, and this is another good one. So, your kind of lower body is the anchor. If you imagine, we've engaged our core, we've got that kind of light touch on the handlebars. Well, how should you be holding on? So, the feet is kind of like your anchor, if you like. It kind of locks you into the bike, and then your thighs gripping the tank. They're the bits that kind of you should be holding on to the bike with, if you like. And but obviously you need to move your feet to use the controls, the brake and the gears and so forth. But it's better to try and ride with your kind of heel against the pegs, and we see lots of riders with their toes on the pegs, and that's very unstable, you know what I mean? And if you think about anchoring, it's really better to have your heels in there, but of course, you need to move for the gears. But it puts less pressure on your wrists and shoulders, and especially in bumpy roads and longer distance rides.
So we've seen lots of onboard footage of racers and how they move their feet around to move the bike around, especially they're putting a lot more weight through the pegs. But if you look at road riding, if you've got a peg, and let me try and describe that a bit better. So if you've got the heel of your boot, the rear of your boot where the heel is it best to sort of wedge it into the peg there?
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of gives you more solid foundation, and if you compare that to having your toes on the foot peg, that's kind of quite unstable, right?
Mark, we've talked previously about front end feel, about grip, and how can body position help with that as well?
Oh, absolutely. So we're kind of leading towards that now with, engaging our core. And really the front end feel is about developing those kind of fine motor skills and dexterity. So you're coordinating those kind of small, muscle movements and synchronizing with your hands and your eyes to get that kind of lighter touch on the handlebars. And the reason is, this is the steering trail. Normally you can see where the contact patches on the ground, and then where the steering axis intersects, I should say, on the ground. That's where you measure the trail from. So even though it's kind of displayed down here, it's measured on the ground here. But that is what you're trying to feel, because when your bike is kind of, that front tire's moving around, you can feel like slight slides. They're kind of like micro slides, right? And that's, when you listen to kind of racers, they're talking about don't have the feel. That's kind of what they're talking about, that front end feel. So if you've got, if you're holding on for grim death, and you're not going to feel any of that movement in the front, you've got too much weight on your hands and you're going to lose that feel. So it's really important, get that core engaged and a lighter touch on the bar, as close to 90 degrees to the steering stem as you can, and change your bike. Don't be afraid to change your bike. The ergonomics, things can be moved. And then that's kind of how you start building that kind of dexterity. So next level then is, being mindful of how the weight transfers around the bike, when you're braking, cornering and accelerating. That body weight and pressure shift from your hands to your bum and your feet. And then, building that consistency, we'll watch this again because you're practicing your drills, and that's how you start, being consistent, that step by step in a controlled environment, repeating it and developing that consistency, because otherwise it's really kind of hard to measure, if that makes sense.
There's a lot to get through there, isn't there? Because there's an awful lot of one's body that can affect how the motorcycle moves, but ultimately it's weight, isn't it? So it's whether you're moving your head, your shoulders, your core, your legs, your feet, your arms, all of it makes a lot of effect on the bike. But shall we perhaps summarize motorcycle biomechanics means and how it can be helpful?
Yeah, well, I guess, it's good body position. It's another tool in your riding belt to help you become a safer, better rider. Helps you reduce your lean angle, improves tire grip, easier steering. You can respond quicker, and stay visible and be seen and balanced on every ride. So there's a lot of benefits, even with small movements. That's a key thing.
Yeah, it's so key to go and practice those things, isn't it? On your next ride, go out there and just do those small movements to see what effect it has on the motorcycle, from steering to grip. Mega.
Exactly.
Mark,
Exactly.
what are we talking about in the next episode? That'll be episode 14 in this series.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting one for me. It's about intuition. on how to develop your sixth sense on your motorbike.
Fascinating. All right. I look forward to learning more about that. Brilliant. Well, you'll know my questions already because if you've got the sixth sense and yeah. So I just I can sit there.
Mind reader.
What that you already know.
Too
Brilliant,
easy.
Mark. Thank you very much. As always, we will
No
see you
worries.
next time.
Thanks, Michael.
Brilliant. Thanks also to Honda Motorcycles UK. Mark and I will be back next time, clearly, to discuss how to develop your intuition and your sixth sense. But in the meantime, don't forget to check out all of our other better riding episodes. I'll put a link to the playlist for our YouTube playlist in the comment section below. Okay, I've got 3 more places that I'd like to offer you. First of all, go to Bennett's Bike Club, which is our new community website, a bit like a forum. It's full of experts to answer any motorcycle related question. If you've got a question about tires, for example, we've got the guy from Bridgestone, the guy from Michelin, the guy from Pirelli. They're all on there and ready to answer your questions. And a similar offering can be found on our private Facebook group. That's also called Bennett's BikeSocial. So Bennett's Bike Club, Bennett's BikeSocial. And then finally, how about becoming a BikeSocial member? And that entitles you to just over 200 different motorcycle apparel, clothing, and training discounts. Just search BikeSocial membership. All right. Thank you once again for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Honda Motorcycles are supporting this series because safety is one of their key business pillars, and their quest for safety inspires their innovations in products, technology, and education, which is why they're committed to achieving 0 traffic fatalities involving Honda mobility products worldwide by 2050.